It's my pleasure to introduce our very own American Farm Bureau President, Zippy Duvall. Zippy, I don't think there's a greater advocate for farmers or agriculture in this country than Zippy is. He travels tirelessly representing our interest and speaking on our behalf. He's served as president of AFBF since January of 2016, and he's a third-generation farmer from Georgia. In addition to a 400-cow beef operation, matter of fact, he was showing me pictures. He shipped a load to Iowa that just got there a little while ago. He and his wife, Bonnie, also have a broiler operation. I believe he told me 34 years in the same houses, and they produce about 750,000 broilers per year. Prior to being elected American Farm Bureau president, Zippy served 9 years as president of the Georgia Farm Bureau. His long leadership history in his home state also includes service on the Georgia Farm Bureau Young Farmers Committee and Georgia Farm Bureau Board of Directors. Zippy and Bonnie have been married for more than 38 years, raised 4 children, and now enjoy spending time with their 5 grandchildren. They attend New Hope Baptist Church, where Zippy serves as a deacon. Would you join me in giving a warm Tennessee welcome to Zippy?
Thank you. Thank you. I hope I can live up to that standing ovation. One of the ladies that work with me at American Farm Bureau is Lynn Finnerty, and she helps me write my speeches. And by the way, she didn't write this one because I'm among friends. I'm just going to talk from my heart, and most of the time I do. I'll come down off stage, and she said, "Well, you used 3 of my points." But she told me, she said, "What you going to do when they quit standing up for you?" I said, "That's when I'm going to start worrying." So I thank y'all for that great, warm welcome. I really appreciate it. It is great to be back in Tennessee. You know, when I come to Tennessee and I go to South Carolina and I go to Alabama, I feel like I'm with my folks. We all talk the same and we think the same. We move the same speed, you know. So I feel like I'm really at home. I just text Bonnie. I imagine half of you in this room has asked me about Bonnie. I just texted her and said, "Wouldn't you like to say hello and thank them for praying?" She said, well, she was trying to get hooked up to her fluids, and she just didn't feel comfortable doing it right now. But she wanted me to tell you, thank you. Excuse me. She is a miracle. A miracle. And miracles are given to God-fearing people that ask for miracles. And she has been prayed for by you and people all over this country. And she is a living miracle. Now, she's very fragile. She's at a good place. She's at home. We have to give her 3 liters of fluids a day to keep her kidneys functioning. But she'll run me out of the kitchen, and she's back to doing laundry, and she's doing the things that she loves to do, take care of us, but she wanted me to say thank you from the bottom of her heart and mine, because your prayers are working. Please keep them coming, please, because she is about as tough as they come. She'll tell me when we walk through the door, she said, "If you're feeling blue about me today, get out of here. I don't want any of that around me. We're going to beat this thing, quit worrying about it." And she'll also say, "When are you going to work? Because them farmers need you, and you're not going to use me as an excuse." So even though I feel like I should be there with her, I know I'm where she wants me to be. She wants me to be with you because she knows the work that she and I have done for farmers through this great organization is trying to help your life be better on the farm. And it is a calling by God, and I enjoy every moment of it. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for those prayers. I tell you, it is just good to be back here. I just came from Minnesota, and I thought, Jennifer's sitting in front of me. Jennifer, one of your own, gave the beef cattleman's report this morning. Please, Jennifer, stand up and let them give you a big round of applause because she did an excellent job. And really and truly, that part of my job, I won't have to talk about issues much because we work so closely together. Just about everything she said about those issues, I would say the same thing. I may add a little bit to it. But she has done an excellent job, and I'm just so proud of the work she's doing. But I just come from Minnesota, where I spent the day with Chairman Colin Peterson and Secretary Perdue at the Farm Fest, which is one of the farm shows that you own as part of American Farm Bureau. We own Idea Ag that owns that farm show. And they had a big listening session there. And it was in a big barn, I mean a big barn, and there was standing room only of farmers that wanted to be at that listening session. Now, if I asked you what you thought they would say, it might be a little different than what you think. It might be a little bit different. I was a little surprised. And yeah, you could tell the pain in their voice. You could tell the troublesome things that they were going through. But let me tell you some of the things that they talked about. They didn't talk about trade other than we need trade. We need for you to finish the deals. And it wasn't speaker after speaker. It was just mentioned a couple of times. Now, when I left that hearing and went with the secretary around through some of the booths, we stopped at Farmers Union, and they gave him a hard time, a real hard time. And if you know Secretary Perdue, you can only give him a hard time so far, and then he starts turning red. And you better be starting backing up because he'll start telling you why he takes the position. And he has really good reasons for taking the position. Secretary Perdue is a shock absorber. He absorbs a shock coming from the president and from us and delivers it in a way that makes this president love us. And that's good in a lot of areas. It's great in a lot of areas, but there are some negatives to it. But as we went on through that listening session, we heard a lot about labor. A lot about labor. And up in that part of the country, I was a little surprised. You know, they're row crop guys. They got a lot of technology, a lot of tractors that drive themselves. You know, we do too down here, but, you know, we look more diversified. We got a lot more intensive labor down here. But they were talking about labor. But let me tell you, the American Farm Bureau, a labor solution has to be affordable. If they don't make it affordable, we can't use it. If they don't make it simple so that we don't have to hire consultants and lawyers, we can't use it. So the wage rate that they keep talking about with the Democratic Party trying to come up with a bill to fix farm labor, the wage rate is where we stumble with them. Now, Congressman Yoho from Florida does have a great idea. Our policy pretty much agrees with everything he wants. Of course, he's a Republican. He's going to have a hard time getting traction with his idea. But hopefully we can take some of his stuff and integrate it into what might eventually come out. And I have always been optimistic that sometime soon in the future we're going to find a solution to that problem. I'm hoping all this immigration talk is going to help us get closer to that finishing that product, getting a product that we can finish. But it has to be affordable. It has to fit year-round needs. We down here in the South, we don't quit working when it starts getting cold. We work all year long. We need help every day of the year. And dairy and mushrooms and so many other areas need that year-round. And the third thing that we got to have adjustment of status for the talented, very experienced workers that's been in our communities and on our farms for 15 to 20 years that are abiding by the laws. They may have broke one coming here, but they're abiding by the laws, and 95% of them are really good-hearted people. And we need a solution for that. Just some kind of adjustment of status where they can be here and work and do for their families, either here or back home. So that was one of the things we heard. We heard a lot of thank yous. Thank you, Secretary Perdue, for what you're doing in the Farm Bill to help dairymen. Help dairymen. The new program in the Farm Bill seems to be very positive to dairymen. And to tack on to that, at American Farm Bureau, John Newton, who's our chief economist who came from the National Milk, helped build a revenue product for dairy. And in record time, and Juliana, I'll tell you this, in record time we pushed it through the process to get it approved to be able to sell it. And it's on the market being sold, and dairymen from all over the country are flocking to it. So between those two risk management programs, dairy has a lot better chance of facing some of the challenges that they've been facing and what's going to come at them in the future. So I heard thank yous about that up in Minnesota. I also heard that they complained a lot about the crop report. I'm sure you did too. Very untimely. Well, the reason for that is those crop reports are scheduled to go out years in advance on those dates, and the Secretary does not have any control over that. So that those reports have to come out when they're listed to come out, and it was unfortunate that it came out when it did because of what was going on with all the weather, because it did move the market and hurt some people. I heard a lot of thank yous about this administration delivering year-round E15. If you're a corn grower, you know what that means to you. But I also heard a lot of conversation about the next step of going to E30 and how do we equip stations to be able to pump these products all across the country. Also heard thank yous about moving the harvest date on unplanted acres, but I got a story about that. That is a big deal in a lot of areas where we had unplanted acres around the flooding. Because what they did, they took those unplanted acres, they wanted to plant a forage crop on them because they're not going to grow the corn and soybeans to feed the cattle. They needed something to feed those cattle with, so they needed to be able to do it on them unplanted acres. And I happened to be riding, the Secretary of Purdue called me and wanted me to ride to him to an event over in Maryland. We went over there, it was a USFRA event, and we rode for about an hour and a half outside of Washington. He picked me up in my apartment. And on the way down the road, I asked him, I said, Secretary of Purdue, I said, these farmers really need to be able to grow some forage for these cattle that they're not going to be able to grow on those unplanted acres. And he said, well, why can't they? And I said, well, they can grow it, but they can't harvest it in November. And in a lot of these areas, that's way too late. So he picks up his phone, he calls this guy back at the office that deals with that program, and he asked him, says, can we do that? Can we move that harvest date? And he said, Mr. Secretary, you have the authority to move that. And he looked at me and he says, what do you think it ought to be? And I said, it ought to be early September sometime. At least early September, if not earlier. He said, I think we can do that. And it happened. That's how important it is for American Farm Bureau to be in the places it's being in. So I heard a big thank you from that. And then, of course, broadband and what USDA is doing with broadband and the opportunities that they're having to make sure that they be able to bring broadband to us all across America, and is just as important in that part of the country as it is in our part of the country. So a lot of the same issues, just to give you a flavor of what's going on in agriculture outside of your area, and I thought you might be interested in that. But I really want to talk to you about American Farm Bureau. And before I do that, this might be a good opportunity for you to show your appreciation to a lady that has given her heart and soul to agriculture and to American Farm Bureau, as serving as the Vice President of the American Farm Bureau for many years, and that's Juliana Potts, and she was our previous speaker, so I'd like for her to stand up and give her a big round of applause for what she did for the Farm Bureau family. Juliana, we miss you. We miss you. We miss you. We miss your fire and your passion. But even though where she works at, sometimes we're on the opposite side of things, but most of the time we're right together, and she's an ally with us in a lot of areas with the company that she's with now. So we continue to appreciate her. But she was there as vice president, and she left it. I appointed Dale Moore to follow her up. Dale and I work just as good together as Juliana and I do. We do it a little bit different than we do because Dale, he's such a policy geek, he couldn't take up both feet out of policy, and that's okay with me. I want him to have his feet in policy because he's so good at it. So we continue down the road, but when I first come there, you know, I had been traveled all over the country asking y'all to vote for me, and I heard a lot of concerns in people's voices about our organization. Now, our organization, I will tell you, I will defend the structure of our organization to the day I die. It can't get no better. So what I had to do is find some ways to bring people more comfortable with the things they thought were wrong with it. They thought that we needed to do away with our regions, that they're dividing us. And I said, no, we're just not using our regions to bring their potential to the table to do what they were designed to do. And that was to help us understand each other. How do you understand somebody else until you know where the line is? So on these things I talk about what we've tried to change, I hope that you'll see that we've made the regions more valuable. They want to talk about membership. We try to do what we can do to bring more value to our members. Juliana introduced me to a point survey that we had done before I got there my first day. I think it was 462 slides. And what it was American Farm Bureau was totally respected in Washington, D.C., held at high regard. Everybody comes to us for information if it's around agriculture because they know that you in Tennessee has told you what you thought. But if you got further and further away from Washington, D.C., the less appreciation our grassroots had for American Farm Bureau. So I said, maybe we're looking at this wrong. Why should they appreciate American Farm Bureau? Why do we have to separate Tennessee Farm Bureau from Greene County Farm Bureau in Tennessee from American Farm Bureau? We don't have to separate it. We are an organization of one voice. We are a three-legged stool. The most important leg of that stool is the County Farm Bureau. And it will never change as long as I'm president. And then our State Farm Bureau is a super supporter of that County Farm Bureau, and that State Farm Bureau is a member of American Farm Bureau. And without all three of those legs, guess what? That stool falls over. So we shouldn't want people to appreciate American Farm Bureau. We shouldn't want people to appreciate Tennessee Farm Bureau. We shouldn't want them to appreciate Greene County Farm Bureau. We want them to appreciate Farm Bureau. Because we are one family. You can't do anything at one level without all levels kicking in and helping together. So the culture that I wanted to try to nurture at American Farm Bureau was, hey, look, we're not the American Farm Bureau. We are Farm Bureau, and we work for the grassroots of this organization. Them 6 million members out there, that's who we work for. And those members, by the way, they belong to a county farm bureau. They don't belong to the State Farm Bureau. They don't belong to the American Farm Bureau. Those members belong to the county. And I will never forget that. So I've tried to nurture that to keep everybody thinking that, hey, we work for them. And we need to be more inclusive. So not only did I want to, inclusive is, to me, is an important word. Because everything we do at American Farm Bureau, we want to include your State Farm Bureau, hoping they will include you at your County Farm Bureau. And some of the examples of that, when we did the Farm Bill, I created a Farm Bill working team. Now, normally we would have worked that out at American Farm Bureau level with our staff. Well, guess what? We did have our staff on there, but we had every one of your national affairs people on there too. We did weekly calls, sometimes twice a week. On those calls, we had people like Chairman Conaway on those calls. We had people from the administration on those calls. Not just American Farm Bureau people talking to them, but all across America, our national affairs people were talking to them. And guess what? Those regions, I heard regions say, well, I didn't know it treated the South like that. That makes sense. We don't need to be fighting that. And I've heard the South say, well, I didn't know that about the Northeast. So making the regions vibrant and representing themselves and putting them on a format where they can work together and hear and understand each other, we become a stronger one voice. And that's just one of many examples that we've tried to culture at American Farm Bureau. And I think Jeff will tell you that it has paid off big dividends in the way we work together. Also wanted to bring transparency to it. My example to tell you about transparency is at our last national convention, our delegates passed a 700 resolution saying that we should put a committee of farmers together to study the milk marketing orders. Now, I'll tell you, that stirred up some people. I mean, I got some phone calls saying, what are y'all dealing with the milk marketing orders for? Well, my answer to that is easy, because you told me to do it. As long as my members tell me to do it, hey, I'm safe. I don't care who wants to criticize us for doing it. But it's been so powerful. We had our state senate, I don't know how many names, but a lot of names serve on that committee. And, of course, we couldn't put everybody on there. So we tried to get representation from all over the country, different sizes. You know, we tried to have good representation. But then we wanted to make sure that we opened those meetings up to the other people that were nominated. They could sit and listen if they wanted to. And then every white paper that we put out from that study is on our website. You can go read them. You can go read them if you wanted to do that. So we want to be transparent. The only way we can keep you appreciating and understanding and seeing value in American Farm Bureau is for us to be transparent. You need to know what we're doing. And we're trying to find other ways to be transparent with that. The next step that we're taking right now, and like y'all got a good communications group. We had a good communication. Mace Thornton led it for years and years and years. And Mace has moved on to soybeans, and we thank him for as much his dedicated work. But we've got a new leader there, Terry Moore. Terry Moore comes in with a long pedigree. She was with Secretary Joe Hans when he was governor. She came to the USDA with him. I think she worked on Capitol Hill as the chief of staff at one time. She comes to us with a long pedigree. She's been a reporter. So I'm looking for big things. But the first thing I told Terry when she came in, I said, look, I go to all these states and they got some fantastic people working in their communications area. And we can't expect them to push our stuff that we produce if we don't push their stuff. So you can look for Terry to reach out to Lee and his group, saying, what can we do together? How can we help? Can you help us with this? We want to work with you. We want to make sure that our communications is good, because we have to make sure that we communicate our story. We have to make sure that we communicate back to you so that you can find that value in your Farm Bureau at all levels. But really and truly in communications, we got to tell the truth. I mean, really, do you really believe that somebody working for the federal government on the border down in Arizona makes children drink out of toilets? I can't even comprehend that news story that I heard on CNN. I know that's a lie. That can't be true. We got to make sure what they say about those things, what they say about agriculture, what they say about us and our practices. We got to tell them what we're already doing to save this world from global warming. They have no clue of the millions and millions and millions of dollars and hours that you already spend right now protecting our soils and waters. We got to tell them about it. We got to tell the truth, because there's enough people out there lying about our stuff and telling false truths to lead people in the wrong direction. Communications is important. Jennifer and them do a great job with beef. And sometimes I'm a little envious you just got one commodity to represent. But you know, we're kind of like Joseph. We're a coat of many colors. We have to make sure that we cover all bases. So we get the opportunity to really say what agriculture is thinking. Now, I get a little criticism for being too pro this administration. Well, let me tell you something. Jennifer said it this morning. Y'all been in the White House 8 times? I can't even count how many times I've been there, and our staff has been there. And yes, we probably hadn't been there since the first Bush either. Why wouldn't we not be pro this administration? This administration, while they're worrying about Mueller reports and all that stuff over, he's got them diverted over there. He's putting judges that you and I agree with on the bench. He's cutting regulations. By the way, ditch the rule. It's going to be a reality really soon. Maybe the end of this month or in September. Ditch the Rue was a campaign about ditching the WOTUS Rue that this organization started that everybody bid onto across America, across all commodities. It was started in this organization. And it's fixing to be a reality. But just recently this week, I had someone send me after we released my statement about what China did last week when they said they would cease to buying all agricultural commodities. I had someone send me the headlines of the China Daily News. And it says, Farm Bureau warns loss of China's business. And on down in the article, it talks about China's decision to limit U.S. agricultural imports, this is in China now, will have a dire impact on farmers and deliver a body blow to the thousands of farmers and ranchers who are already struggling to get by. Zippy Duvall from American Farm Bureau. Larry Kudlow, Trump's chief economic advisor, said farmers would be given assistance. And Trump has already done that, compensating farmers with $28 billion aid package. Last week, USDA signed up farmers for a program that will hand out $14.5 billion. More dollars. Now, when I came here to ask this state to vote for me, I told them one of the things that I can try my best to deliver, because I've been able to do it in other positions where I've been, was the relationships. And with myself and Juliana, Dale Moore, and the team at American Farm Bureau, we have rebuilt our relationships in Washington, D.C., and we built a relationship with this administration so that we got a seat at the table. So that when they're reporting on something that happened, they quote us in the same paragraph that the chief economist of the President of the United States is quoted in. That's how important having that one voice is. That's how that multicolored coat covers us up and keeps us protected. It is so, so important that what American Farm Bureau says is what the American farmer believes. And those relationships, and I'm telling you young people, if you can find a way to accomplish anything in life without a relationship, I want to know about it. Because I think in your religious life, your faith, in your marriage, in your friendships, and in your business life, you will never accomplish anything without a good relationship with one or more people. And that's what I think we have built at American Farm Bureau. We have never had the exposure to EPA, Interior, USDA, and administration that we have today. Never. And I think Juliana will tell you that. And I know all the people that work in American Farm Bureau will tell you that. So, you're here today, President's Conference. I always thought at Georgia Farm Bureau that our President's Conference was the most important meeting we had, right beside of the importance that I found in our commodity conference. And y'all are getting ready to start your commodity groups after this, I know that. Now, I'm going to talk to every one of them. I know you've been here 2 days, and you got 10,000 things you need to be doing at home. And more than likely, 99% of you, it's going to cost you money to have been here. Because I know every time I left the farm, there was something went wrong that might not have went wrong if I'd have been there. I understand that. It still happens. It still happens. So you're making a sacrifice to be here. But let me tell you something. The work that you're going to do in commodity groups, the work that you go back home and do as county presidents, is the most invaluable work that's done in Farm Bureau. So you come to prepare yourself. You've listened to speakers for 2 days to prepare yourself to go back home and start the resolution season to help build the policy that we're going to affirm in Austin that gives us a roadmap to go by next year. It is important. Commodity groups, just like our issues advisory committees, you know, when you talk about issues, you want to know what the farmers think about that issues. Our policy is set for a whole year. But issues move around all the time. So we have to talk to you about your advice to Jeff and his staff is priceless. I can't tell you how important it is as a leader of a state or the national organization of what your work is done and what you do in your counties. And by the way, telling our story, you know, I can tell it from American Farm Bureau, but it's best to come from you. When it comes from you, it is so sincere. I can deliver my own story, but nobody can deliver your story like you can. So I don't know how long I got, but I want to tell you one little story, and it's about preparing yourself, because you're here to prepare yourself to really help Jeff and his staff through the commodity group. You're here to prepare yourself as Farm Bureau county presidents to put your county in action with resolutions and telling our stories to your neighbors. So this story is one of my testimonies. So when I was a young farmer, one of the young farmers I served with was Tom McCall. And Tom McCall and his wife lived about an hour and a half northeast of me, almost in South Carolina. Well, we were in the childbearing years, and Tom and Jane had a little boy named Bud. Just a week after Bonnie and I had a little girl named Corey. And Bud was born with spinal bifida, very bad shape. Just broke all of our hearts. They said that anyone in his condition never lived over 15 days. So we run to the hospital and we try to comfort Tom and Jane, and just really a sad situation. Well, Bud made it past 15 days. Bud made it past 5 years. Bud made it past 10 years. Bud was touching thousands of lives on his way. See, Bud couldn't walk. He loved Scooby-Doo, and he'd sit in front of the TV, lay on the floor in front of the TV all day long and watch Scooby-Doo. But Bud and Jane didn't bring him. They took him to every Farm Bureau meeting. They took him everywhere they went. And Bud was such a pleasant child. Even though he couldn't talk, he would smile and shake your hand. Well, you know, as I went through those years that Bud was growing up, my farm grew and diversified, because I started in the 80s, and guys, I know it's tough now, but the 80s were really, really bad too. And you know, as a farmer will do, he'll do more and more and more just try to make ends meet. Well, I finally got to about 300 cows and 4 chicken houses and 4 children and a superwoman for a wife. And it was all I could take. It was no way to get it all done, because the help was sorry. You couldn't hire people to do it. I'm sorry. There's some sorry people in this world, and some of them work for me. The help was sorry. And you know, I know every one of you going to say, you're going to shake your head. You've been there. There's just days nothing went right. You couldn't go get it all done. Well, every Monday morning, Barry Dye, who worked for Purina, would come by. He was my feed salesman. He'd come by and knock on my feed bins. Barry knew that I was good friends with Tom and Jane and Bud. And he said Monday morning, he says, "Have you talked to Tom lately?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, Bud's really bad." And Bud's about 15 now. And I said, "Oh, I hate to hear that." Well, as soon as he drove out and his taillights disappeared, it went out of my mind. I went back to fighting that fire. You know, flat tires, tractors not cranking, cows sick, heater in a chicken house won't work. I mean, you name it, it was happening that day. And finally I came in for lunch. I done had all I could take. And I told Bonnie, I says, "You know, Barry come by this morning and said Bud wasn't doing good." I says, "It's been a terrible morning. I'm going to see Tom and Bud. I don't care if the cows don't get milked." So here I go, hour and a half away. All the way over, feeling the pressure of leaving home. All that stuff is tore up, working sick, wouldn't do right. All that pressure, feeling sorry for myself. And I drive up in Tom's yard, and it's full of cars and the ambulance. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm too late." And I walked in, and they all huddled over Bud, and they're giving him CPR and trying to keep him alive. And it was almost like I wasn't in the room with them. And I sat down on the couch. And when I sat down on that couch, I just watched them. And after about 30 minutes, they all came away from him. He was breathing on his own. And Tom looked over and saw me, and he says, "Can you get me out of here? I just don't think I can take anymore." I said, "Sure, Tom, what do you want to do?" He said, "Let's go haul some wheat straw." I thought to myself, he just wanted me to do some free labor. So he and I go haul wheat straw for about 5 or 6 hours all afternoon. And he relaxed, I relaxed, talked about old times, just good friends, good friends. We filled every vacant house in the community up with wheat straw. And of course, I came back in, and all the community brought food over, and Jane wouldn't have it. I had to eat supper with them. Nasty as I was, I had to eat supper with them. Bud was doing good. He was laying on the floor. So we got through eating, and Tom and I walk out to the truck. We're saying goodbye, and he breaks down. And he says, "I can't take this no more." He says, "I'm losing my faith over this." He said, "My little boy ain't done nothing to nobody, and he doesn't deserve this punishment." He said, "I don't know of any God that would put a child through this." And I thought, oh my God, I come over here feeling sorry for myself. And I thought, God, I pray every once in a while, and I go to church on Sunday, but I ain't ready for this. I wasn't prepared, people. But God put the words in my mouth. And I said, "Tom, you can't give up on your faith." I said, if you give up on your faith, you're admitting that there's not another life, and that you won't never see your son again. And I said, I don't think you're willing to make that sacrifice. And he broke down and cried on my shoulder just like two brothers would do. I left there feeling about this big. I promised God I would never not be prepared again. And then I would try my best, even though I was a sinner and still am, to live a better life, that someone might see His Spirit living in me. See, I wasn't prepared. That's a terrible feeling. Because when God sends blessings by you, whether it's for your family, whether it's for Farm Bureau, whether it's for your business, whether it's just for you personally, if you ain't prepared, you don't get to receive that blessing. And I'm mad at myself for all them thousands of blessings He sent my way that I didn't get to see. By the way, I told Tom and Jane, Bud died the next week. When I went to the funeral, I told Tom and Jane, I said, Tom, your boy wasn't supposed to live but 15 days. He lived 15 years to help let God use him to change the whole sinner's life. I'm telling you that story because you don't ever want to not be prepared, whether it be spiritually or whether it be business-wise. You're here today. You're going to do valuable work. Your work is going to help this organization be more successful. But let me tell you, it doesn't make any difference what Jeff and his team does. It doesn't make any difference what my team does or our team does in American Farm Bureau. Without you, we have no strength. See, we have people in and out of the Capitol every day, in and out of the White House every day, pushing your policies forward. But when they call and want somebody to show up, like Monday when Jennifer's going, I'm supposed to be there, but I got to be somewhere else, so I'm sending some Western guys there. When they call, we want to send you, not just me, because you're the power and the strength of this organization. So don't ever come to a Farm Bureau meeting and think that you have wasted any of your time. Your time is valuable. I want you to know that your American Farm Bureau president, and I'll say it for Jeff, your Tennessee Farm Bureau president, thinks that your time is so valuable that we want to hear what you got to say, because what you say is the policies that we push every day. Without you, there's no reason for a Farm Bureau, whether it's county, state, or national level. So, in Isaiah, and I'm summing it up, in Isaiah 6:8 it says, God said, or it says, then I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, here I am. Send me. My challenge to you is, if you're a Christian, I hope that you'll live your life, that the Spirit's not just inside of you, that it's all over the outside of you, and it makes someone desire to have it. But if you're a real, truly dedicated Farm Bureau member, you have already said, send me. What we need to do is go back home and find the others that will step up and say, send me, because the power is in the grassroots, and the grassroots have to come in numbers, and we get things accomplished. And that's what Farm Bureau is all about. And those relationships with other organizations like Jennifer's is just an extended part of our family, because if you put people in a room, we overlap, and we're all Farm Bureau family. Thank you, and God bless you.